Hey y'all, it's Kristen from Ardani Farm, and I thought I'd do just a really quick winter track tour. I think I mentioned in my last video, we're just this week have started to have some days in the 20s, nights in the 20s, and everything right now is just very frosty and pretty. But one of the things what made me think about busting out the camera is showing how the horses break the ice and drink from the water trough. I don't use electric heaters in my water trough. No shade against anybody who does. I don't think this is a right or wrong thing. I know that there are studies saying that horses drink a little bit more water when it is warmer, but I've seen so many horses have bad experiences with getting shocked by those electric heaters, the little water trough heaters, and then kind of go off the water. So I feel that, you know, there's a risk reward thing, and you just kind of have to balance things out. I feel like my horses drink a good amount. They get super soupy food in the winter too, and all that. So at least currently under my current herd and my current, state of things, no hot water heaters. But they do break the ice here. So this is the smaller trough, and you can see where it was broken, and then they drank all of that. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a good, basically from, this part of the trough, and it's empty on the side. Don't worry, the horses are not out of water. We have a full trough over here, which has also had some ice breaking and then drinking below that level. So it shows me that they had that much water to drink even after the top froze. And they obviously did it in two segments because there's two ice layers. So there's this first ice layer here, and then there's another one here. So they had two good drinks. This one was a little bit more, and then someone came through and resipped here. So that's just kind of sharing my winter thing. And again, this could change if things got really, really cold. Where I was really worried about like super heavy, then I might put up I have a separate electric bucket that is more of like a kind of like a muck tub sized bucket, and I would probably fill that and put it up by the barn and plug that in. That way, if anything did happen where they, kind of developed an aversive reaction to that tub, it wouldn't be their two normal tubs and look totally different. So I wouldn't end up with a situation where they became afraid of the normal water trough. So yeah, we're gonna have like one winter a couple years ago, we had days in the our low was like 9 degrees Fahrenheit, and with a pretty significant wind chill. And so if that happened again, I'd provide heated water. But under our normal conditions, these 20s is about as low as we get here. We are in zone right on the cusp of 7B and 8A over here in kind of coastal Virginia in the US. So this is honestly, we're getting them kind of, I would say early, but we actually stayed warm pretty late. But this is pretty close to our peak winter cold right now. So far, nobody's had blankets on. I am not anti-blanket. I think blanket when necessary. And we keep an eye on everybody, but I come out and everybody's fluffy and warm and looking good and keeping weight. And so again, do I have some horses in my herd who, if it got cold and wet, would definitely get blankets. And if it got super cold, I think, Dakota and a couple of others would be looking at possibly some additional warmth just to not have to burn any extra calories. Then I have some horses who need to burn the calories. So let them do what their bodies were meant to do. And again, cold here is sort of relative. So continuing on the tour, over here we have our black willow, which is one of our native willows, not a weeping willow, which I think he was the very first plant that we bought for this property. And I have a deep connection in my heart to this tree. This and the redbud, I think, are probably my my heart trees. But he was just a tiny little stick when we picked him up from Lady Fern Nursery out in Norfolk, and about hip high on me. And can we just admire how big he has gotten? Look at that. He's over my head, and all of these branches. Obviously we're lacking in the leaf department currently, but such is winter. But Just very, very excited that this little tree has grown up so much, and I'm really excited to see the growth next year. And I think there's just some sort of connection I have to this tree and the progress on the farm. You know, we're growing. This tree and I are growing together. This farm and this tree are like forever linked in time, and I love it. So the black willow's still kicking, and we lost some plants, you know, over the time. We had a very dry dry summer, which is hard on, you know, we planted in the spring a lot of our plants, but it was tough. It was tough for new plants. We have also added up around closer to the barnyard. We have 2 spice bushes. We have a button bush. Again, I'm happy to show those off. They are all kind of sticks currently. So not terribly interesting. And I think I mentioned earlier, we have a ton of privet still that we are fighting, continuing to eliminate. I guess the other thing I'll mention is our over our water trough, there is that gorgeous oak tree. And talking about kind of like passive solar, that I love that during the summer when that tree is all leafed out, it provides shade over our water trough. But then in the winter when we need the sun on it, conveniently he drops his leaves, which we rake up because oak leaves and horses. But and then the sun hits those water troughs and keeps them relatively solarized and warm. Obviously they still freeze, but we have more honeysuckle to take down along here. There's a lot of work to still be done. I think we're making slow and steady progress on things. Sometimes not so slow, but I will say that it's a constant evolution. You know, this is the back of our property. Let me rephrase that. It's the back of the front of our property. We have our track divided into 2 sections, what we call the front track, which is completely surfaced, and the back track, which is not. So this is the back of the front, and it is where our orchard is going to be. We've ordered our plants for this, the start of it. I know orchard seems, you know, food forest, right? So this is going to be our long-term food production. So big fruit trees and things like that. We're also starting to compost our manure in line here. This is stuff that has been resting, but it's not fully done yet. It's going to require a couple more turns, I think. And you can tell because you can still see some poop balls in it. If I zoom in here, they're frosty, but they're there. And hopefully by this spring, we'll be ready to plant some stuff in here. We do have 2 feed stations back here where we can hang hay nets. I try to put my hay nets on the ground as much as I can to move them around, right? So they're not always static, and to, you know, adjust the neck position and the heights that they're eating at. But I find literally nothing grosser than wet hay nets. So when we have bad weather, we do hang them up. Coming back around, we have this little area that I have carved out for them. It is not surfaced. It does get muddy when it rains. It is right next to our yoga studio, and we do have a little gate here. This is a gate we added specifically to have a place to bring horses in and out that was not associated with feed time. Now, we've rectified that problem overall by putting in our feed stalls and changing our feeding plan. And this is just more about how we can take equine behavior into consideration when we're setting up our farm. So anyway, this place over here, I'm thinking in the future we might add an additional shelter, maybe use it for inclement weather hay. You know, like I was just saying about the rain, maybe we build a little shelter and they can come in and eat with their hay nets being dry. I am on a mission to find a way to keep our hay nets clean and dry, because I think we're every day we solve, you know, more problems, you know, and that's the current one. Is if I could get that sorted. I think now that the feed stall project is nearing completion, that's next on the list. So we do have these little pergolas that went up over the summer. The main point of these pergolas is, just so you don't do what I did, is we laid the surfacing of our track first. It was one of the first things we did when we bought the property, but I didn't consider connecting the hot wire. So to energize my center bits, we couldn't go under. Well, we could, but it would have been a lot of work because there was like 8 inches of stone. So we went up and over. So this is actually running our hot wire to connect, and there's 2 of them because we have 2 centers. So the hot wire comes off of here, comes up and over the pergola down this side and energizes here, and then does the same thing over there. We are planning to have some climbing plants. We have some coral honeysuckle, which is native here, and it is mostly evergreen. It's here. I'm not going to touch it too much because it's frosty. I don't want to damage its cells while it's still wet, while it's still frozen. But the horses keep eating it. So we're and so I think what we're going to do is put up a little barrier here to help it get up and climbing. So lessons were learned there, but they will eat honeysuckle, which it's fine. I picked it because it's non-toxic and all of that. But yeah, so again, this is kind of the orchard area. Use your imagination. We'll come back like 4 years from now and it'll be gorgeous, and abundant and all those things. But right now it's just sort of an empty field. So as we come up here, we're coming across again our pergolas. This has our sort of middle pathway I call the woodland trail, which has all of the logs on it that the horses step up and over. And our, trimmer and people who interact with our horses have said that they have seen a difference in the feeling in their body and how their muscles feel. And I think that part of it, we live in a very flat area. And, we tend to, as horse people, we want to provide these like perfect pastures, until we change our minds about that. But, and the horses here in particular don't have a whole lot of opportunity in our area globally. Don't have a whole lot of opportunity to step up and over things. So we've added these in. The horses go through it several times a day. And we are seeing that they're kind of, one of our girls, Rose, has sticky stifles, and those are actually improving, we think. Her trims are getting easier. She's feeling looser in her body. I think it's because she's moving it, right? And the more you use it, people are the same way, I'm learning. So this is the center of our track. We don't graze, we're grass free, if you're new here. And what we have decided to do is we're restoring this to a native wildlife habitat. And it's a work in progress. It's not perfect. We have some invasives. This is some mugwort over here. I'm going to come in here and hopefully take this down. I'm probably a little late. But we have our goldenrod here. And my other video, I was saying how I loved this goldenrod when it was blooming. And when we love things when they're blooming, and then they age and their beauty fades. But what I'm seeing here is how valuable this is, because the birds, the goldfinches and other birds have been in here eating these seeds and hopefully spreading them, and using them to, survive the winter. It's also providing habitat for nesting bees, where the horses have come through and nibbled on some of them. It creates the holes in the stems where our cavity nesting bees can come through and nest. So lots and lots of goldenrod, which again, one of my favorite plants. People ask me all the time, like, what's your favorite wildflower? And a lot of people are shocked to hear that it is goldenrod. They're like, it's so weedy. I'm like, it's beautiful. So it's golden, obviously golden yellow in the late summer, fall, and then it's puffy and it holds the frost, and I think it's pretty. There's some dog fennel in here. Dog fennel is mildly toxic to horses. I don't think our horses have access to enough quantity to cause a problem. Most of it's inside the hot wire. But again, it's native and it belongs in our ecosystem. There's still lots of grasses and stuff that are not native here, so we have work to do. We have some late bone set, which actually has now fallen over. But I'm hoping that will spread next year, and really take off. Up as we kind of come back around front, we have our other feed stations up here. Again, this has mud grids down and is surfaced. There's still some water problems I have to deal with, where we have this little trench here in between the feed stations. So I'm thinking we're probably going to end up putting some stall mats with water holes, drainage holes, fill in them. because this is like a pro and con, right? So I get my hay nets up off the ground, but then this area holds hay that drops, and it gets, particularly in summer, smelly and gross. So again, we still have a little bit of work to do here. I think we had stall mats. Oh, where are they? They're over here. That were here, but they were too short because I'm bad at measuring things. So still some improvements to do on these feed stations, but by and large, I am a fan of them. I recommend having surfaced areas where you have can get your hay up off the ground. I would still recommend that, but this model needs a little bit of work. These are the new feed stations here. We have 3 of the actual ones and then 1 big stall still left. We're working on training the horses to go into them. This will be day 4 of having these set up, and the three bay mares, Allie, Aoife, and Rose, are pretty solid at this point about going in. So we're going to start working on conditioning the boys, which we haven't even really attempted to get them in there yet. So we're going to condition the boys to get in there, and then we'll add the other stalls and help Dakota, who's our youngest horse, and is kind of nosy. Is having a hard time standing still. Once those are up and everybody else is in, I think she'll settle in. So we have 2 more feeding stations here. I think I mentioned in another video. I don't know that I love them for all the mud reasons I just talked about. I'm thinking about replacing them with trees and putting them somewhere else. Things change as you live in a place. So anyway, but they're here now, and we do hang hay nets from them occasionally. I like them a little bit more in the summer because the horses really don't love going out to get hay, and they would actually just rather starve. So at least this is our main communal shelter behind me. At least this summer they will take multiple steps throughout the day to come out and nibble and go back, and I think that's better than nothing. So, but anyway, I think that we could probably get them over to the other feed station without too much hassle. So that is another area that kind of remains to be investigated. This is our sand pit. It is literally just about 4 inches of sand. And the horses do love to roll in it. I always say that I love when I see them using the amenities. In addition to rolling in it, I will be totally honest, they absolutely use it to pee in. I didn't, the barn itself is like kind of a hard standing, which I did because at my old farm, they peed in the sand, and then inside, it was really hard to get that clean. And we ended up with what we called pee and poop corner. And because it never rained in there, you couldn't rinse it out. So they don't pee as much in the barn anymore. It's pretty rare that I have urine in the shelter. And but they do pee over there, and they do pee in the shell sand, which we added kind of recently. So just gonna keep that in mind, that wherever you put your fluffiest stuff, it's definitely going to be a place where they're going to pee. And if you can't, hose it off, it will develop an aroma. But that's mostly gone away in here. When they do pee in here, we use pine pellets that we sprinkle on it. As we finish cleaning the track, that we come through and we just clean it up. So that works pretty well in here. We do have one little stall here we can use for vet appointments, dentals, all that kind of stuff. And we are currently using it to feed one of the horses during feed time. But kind of thinking about maybe taking it down and then making that more of a transitional place where I can add something if I need to. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. This is the rain garden over here, which is looking a little sad because it's winter. But this is an area that the horses used to have access to very early on. And then we changed that up because it was just mud. It's a low-lying area on the property, so the barn slopes down. The barn's a little bit higher, obviously, and then it slopes down. And so what we've done here is that we have fenced it off, and we have water-loving plants planted through here. We have some inkberry hollies, which are non-toxic to horses, to the best of my knowledge. The swamp tai, Joe pieweed and milkweed are in the center. They are toxic to horses. They're away from the horses, and they don't seem to taste good. Milkweed obviously has that milky sap in it. We had a lot of dog mane out back, which mostly has been eradicated in the horse areas, which is similar, and the horses didn't seem to mess with it. So Not to say that they couldn't. Everyone make your own choices, but for me and my herd, it doesn't seem to be a problem. Similarly, this is elder, and the horses, as you can tell, don't mess with it. Even as things are dying elsewhere, the elder is hanging out, and the horses don't want to eat it. So if I saw them nibbling on it, I would probably take a little bit more. Or if even had, like, there's no signs even of nibbles, I would probably take more action on it and take it down. But mine don't mess with it. So anyway, so the Joe Pie and the milkweed and all that, it has died off for winter, but we're planning on adding more. Oh, hey, little bird. Eating off the goldenrod, see? So coming back around, I know I've showed 100 videos probably of this was Pooh Lake, if you're here from the very beginning. Another place where I had the horses having access to unsurfaced land, and it just did not work well. It is also a low-lying area. We have since fenced this off and let grasses and plants grow up here, and things are looking a whole lot better. It's a lot more functional. The ground is draining a whole lot more. I'm really happy with how this is turning out. We do have, they have lost their leaves already, but right here is our river birch, which we got through the Elizabeth River Project as they work to get more native trees planted. And there's actually, we got 2, and there's another one right here. But right now, they're just little sticks, but hopefully soon they will become mighty trees. So I highly recommend that check in with like nonprofits in your area, or the Ag Extension Office and all those sorts of things, to see if there's any programs they're running to get native trees in your area, because trees are expensive. So yeah, awesome. Coming back around, we still have our redbud, who was our first tree we got from the Elizabeth River Project last year. And if we come through our little woodland trail here, he is kind of hanging on. I'm surprised he still has leaves, honestly, but this is probably the end of them after these couple of frosts. But the redbud is through here and hanging out right there, and kind of hard to see, but that's the redbud. But I've really been enjoying this sort of native wonderland. And I was just, my bedroom window faces this, the back, it faces the track, and I love just sitting there and having my coffee in the morning and watching the horses walk through, and the birds are flying, and it makes me feel happy to know that I'm just doing a little bit of something to support them. Still, we have a lot of privet to clean up along the sides here. And then headed back there goes into the grotto and the back pasture. So I should say the back track. We still have the switchbacks out back. Again, something else that sort of I hope to evolve. One of the things I'm learning throughout this process is that I'm learning to accept that I can't do everything immediately. And as much as I hate that, it is a good lesson in patience and acceptance, I think. Along the east side of our property, we have some opportunities for protecting our view, diplomatically, and we're working on planting more screening plants. We do have these gorgeous sweet gums, which again, we're kind of hitting the season of the sticks here, so they're losing their foliage. But these guys have grown up so much. They were like barely my height when we got here last year, and they've really shot up, so I'm pretty excited about them. And we're thinking about planting some probably wax myrtle over on this side, and they get pretty tall and they can provide a little bit of screening, part of the problem. No, screening, and they are evergreen. But our properties are long and narrow, and just providing some greenery separation between us and our neighbors, I think, could be helpful for the aesthetics and everything else. So that is on the list. Everything's on the list of things to do. So again, just kind of orienting. That's the front, the shelter, communal shelters up there. Those are our feed stalls. That's the access to the road, the cut through, the water trough, and this is heading out back. We have the ability to close this off if we need to. We did that when we first brought Rose, who's laminitic and was kind of actively laminitic, going through a recovering from a founder episode. It is open now and everyone seems to be doing well, knock on wood. It is not surfaced. I think, I'll play inclement weather by ear on whether or not to close it out back. This is another little area, what we call the grotto is on the other side of this. But I'm excited that this is actually functioning the way I had intended and providing some browsing opportunities for the horses. We have, unfortunately, some roses that are invasive that we're working on controlling, but the horses are helping us. They, again, to the best of my knowledge, are non-toxic, but I can tell as I look that the horses are absolutely like nibbling on the branches here. Rose in particular seems to love the food options. she takes advantage of the amenities. So again, we can see here, this is some goldenrod that has very clearly been nibbled. And again, I want them to have a diet that is diverse and rich. So I will keep actively planting horse-safe things over here. There's some vervain. I believe this vervain's actually not native, but the horses are eating it, so they're doing their part. There's some staghorn sumac and some things up here as well, which have lost their leaves. But yeah, and then we head out back. We have our little training area out here. And we can tell I just put hay nets out, and then these are the switchbacks. We do have some like blackberry and red raspberry that are out here that are just, I haven't done a full ID to know if they're like truly native, but we did not plant them. So at minimum, they were here when we got here. And I could tell similarly the horses have been munching on those. The east side of the property, let me rephrase that. Sorry, the west side of the property has some mature trees that, these guys do provide some between these and the ones to the south, provide some pretty substantial shade in the afternoon, plus, in the summer in particular, which is really nice. And we're going to work on planting more trees back here as well. But similar to up front, we are not managing extensively the switchbacks here. Again, we're going to keep working on adding some more native plants and trees. I'm just realizing again, like I was saying, that it's easier to just focus on one area at a time. And so that's what I'm doing. I have seen some what look like invasive mulberries popping up, so I probably will come in and take those down. But these are all asters. Again, we're going to seed now, so I feel like they've lost their initial luster, but have changed their purpose and are now supporting the ecosystem in a different way by feeding birds. So I'm really excited about that. So you can see here that we have, this is Posy, Rosie Posy. She was our laminitic friend. She is here now and she is barefoot and doing great. We have her on a weekly trim cycle, which has really helped. I touch her up every week, and then the person who, really knows what they're doing. I just have a kind of a passing knowledge, to not cause too much harm, but there are fabulous barefoot trimmer comes out and sees her every 6 weeks, currently. So Dakota's doing a big little stretch. Yeah, so this is the calm before the feeding. They come back out here to eat while we mix feed and all of that, and it looks like Dakota's gonna take a nap. They obviously have access to hay 24/7. We kind of alternate between feeding hay out back and feeding hay out front. That way they're always walking back and forth between the two, maximizing movement. Hey girlfriend. Hi. You thinking about giving me mean ears and then changed your mind? Good girl. She's gonna come with me now. I've trapped her. And so this is over here, coming up, is where the blackberries have popped up and are being nibbled on. That's all bramble back through here. This is all brambles. And again, you can see that I'm going to assume this is Rose, is taking advantage of the snack bar. This is some honeysuckle that's obviously been nibbled. So yeah. And then we had a pipeline that was put in through our property, not by us, but as an eminent domain sort of project. So we don't have access to the back pasture yet, but we're getting super close. Unfortunately, when they replanted the grass here, despite my best efforts, they replanted it with winter rye, which is a bummer. So we're gonna have to figure out how to mitigate that. Obviously, putting Posey out on, or any of them really, out on frosty rye would be not the best idea. Hi, Schmelly. This is my OG. This is Allie. She's my first pony, the one who started all this. So yeah, so our property goes back out to those trees all the way out back. And we'll work on adding this back. But for right now, it does not feel like the horses are cramped or anything, and we'll just add it back in as we can. But we have that much more land to play with, and we're thinking while we don't have access to the horses back there, we might work on planting some willows and stuff. Yeah, you remember being out that way? She's like, if you could just let me on that rye, that would be great. No, it's not good for you. It's not good for you. So anyway, we have some ideas. There is a low-lying area in the center there, and so some river birches or willows or something else might make sense back there, something water-loving, to help mitigate that. And since the horses are not back there anyway, we could go ahead and throw those up and just put some deer cages around them. So yeah, so that's kind of how things are looking out this way. I'm digging this part of winter is my favorite, this like cool crisp winter. I know in my heart, unfortunately, we have the wet gross winter still to come. That our January, February, early March is pretty gross. So but right now everything is crisp and frosty and gorgeous. So I thought it was a nice day to kind of show you around. I hope this helps. And if I can help in any way, please reach out. I would love to chat with you. Thanks so much for hanging with me.